Hi everyone, my name is Mohit, and in this video we're going to look at section B of TEF Canada exam, which is argumentative letters. So without further ado, let's get started. So let's look at by analyzing the real exam screen and how it looks like. You'll always have the consignment where the red text will change depending on the topic that you receive. The consignment is going to be the exact same every time. Then you'll have a writing space of 3 to 4 centimeters in height, which will also have space taken away by the virtual keyboard that will be present for you to type the accents. And I'll demonstrate what it looks like. So this is how much space the virtual keyboard is going to take on your screen, and it's also going to eat away your writing space. So this will only be the visible space for you to actually look at your text, and only this much height of the text will be visible to you when you're writing the exam. In order to scroll up and down, there'll be a scroll bar which appears only when you press enter and go out of the screen. Otherwise, the scroll bar is not present and the screen looks something like this. But if you press enter like 4 to 5 times, you will see that a scroll bar appears here. And you'll also have a word counter on top, which will let you know the number of words that you've written in this letter, and hence you need not worry about the word count in this exam. Okay. So let's move on to the official evaluation criteria for this exam. And when I say official, it's been published in a video posted by CCI Paris. And within those videos, especially on the one on the writing section, they discuss that the official evaluation criteria for the letters is this. The first is the quality and efficacy of the text that you produce. The second is the mastery of the language itself. So I'll basically describe all of these in English. The first is the consignment understanding, how well you understand the topic, and if you are writing exactly and precisely what is given to you and not something which is beating around the bush and not talking about the topic. Then we have the argument development, which carries a lot of weightage. So given this is an argumentative letter and it's the name of this section, you need to write good arguments and you need to develop them well in order to score well in this exam. Then the third thing that they mention is the precision of information. So if you want to state a thing, it can be done in several ways. One, by beating around the bush, and second, by being very precise about your intention on what you want to say. So the precision of information is what they're looking for. The next is coherency and connectedness between your ideas and between your arguments, and even between the sentences in a given argument. So if you have a paragraph with one single argument and you have like 4 to 5 sentences, you have to connect them well using logical connectors. The second criteria that they have is the mastery of language. And given this is a French language exam, you have to be good at writing French. So in that, they'll be looking at the appropriateness of the vocabulary that you've used, whether it's pertinent, whether it's relevant to the topic that has been given. Then, of course, you have correct use of tenses and grammar, and then spelling mistakes. Now let's look at the elements that constitute a good argumentative letter, and I divided these into 4 parts. The first is the structure of the letter itself, wherein the first element is the style of the writing itself, which needs to be adapted to a letter style of writing. The second is the structure, where ideally you need to have one paragraph per idea or per argument. In order for you to achieve and score well in these elements, you need to have a structure that is fixed, and you don't and shouldn't tweak the structure that you decide early on in your preparation journey. Don't think too much about this phase as well, because just get on and get done with the structure as quickly as possible, because it doesn't really carry a lot of weight. But make sure that you do not make any mistakes within the structure itself, because it's something that you can learn by heart, and if you can learn it by heart, you shouldn't be making any mistakes in this phase. Okay. The second phase is the thinking phase, which is one of the most important phases of writing a good argumentative letter, where you need to think of good arguments. Not only they need to be good, but they also need to be relevant to the topic that you have been given at hand. And of course, you need to think of the development of those arguments as well within this time period, within this phase. And I recommend that you use no more than 5 minutes to plan your arguments, to structure your letter, and to think on topic. Okay, don't get hors sujet, as we call it in French. and explain why you think what you think. So develop your arguments very well, and I'll discuss this in a template that I'll be sharing with you at the end of this video. The third phase, which is the juice of this letter, is basically writing everything that you've thought of. Now that you have a structure, now that you've thought of the arguments and how you're going to develop them, it's time for you to actually write the letter. So while writing these ideas that you've thought of, you need to connect these ideas very well with the help of logical connectors and with the use of appropriate tenses and not making any spelling mistakes. You can go over these elements one by one. And you need to use logical connectors, and you need to use the vocabulary that you're absolutely sure of in order to avoid losing points in this section. Okay. At last, you will be judged also upon the language level and the grammar mastery that you have. The sentence structures that you use within your letter could be simple or complex depending on your level of complexity of thinking, and basis that you'll be scored. I'd advise that you read a lot of newspaper articles, and especially the opinion articles of newspapers, and you read a lot of well-written articles by previous candidates. You can contact me on Telegram if you wish. I'll share some samples with you. And of course, you need to master the grammar concepts well, and also the orthograph or the conjugations in order to not make a lot of mistakes in this section. So let's move on to the timings that you need to take in each of these phases. The structure can be done if you have memorized it by heart. It will not take you more than 1 to 2 minutes to write this structure. The thinking phase, as I said earlier, has to take less than or equal to 5 minutes. The writing phase is the beef of this letter writing, and will take you about 20-23 minutes. So in total, you'll end up spending 30 minutes on this section. And I advise that you take no more than 30 minutes in the writing section, in the writing part of it, where you need 10 minutes in order to revise what you've written, because it's often the case that whatever you write is not correct in the first iteration. You make mistakes unknowingly. Even if you know the correct spelling mistakes, your hand or your fingers slip on the keyboard and they type something else, and you're not really aware of it, and you only get to know once you revise the letter the first time or the second time around. So leave yourself at least 10 minutes at the end of this letter writing in order to revise this and catch your mistakes, which can cost you a lot of valuable points. Okay. So let's move on to some other tips that can help you achieve good score in this section. One is to choose your side. Have a stance in this letter. Given that this is an argumentative letter, don't be very vague about your ideas. Be very precise and choose your stance. The second is to change and adapt to your own writing style. A lot of people have different writing styles, and it's on you to decide what suits you the best. So the first choice that you have is to write this letter argument per argument, wherein you write the first argument, the first paragraph first, complete it, and then move on to the second argument. But what I used to like doing was to go sentence by sentence for each argument. So given that I planned my letter in the initial phase, what I used to do was write each argument first in the beginning of each paragraph, and then I used to write one sentence per argument in order to develop those arguments. And then given the amount of time that I had left, I used to write or not write an example at the end as well. So that kind of gave me a lot of flexibility into stopping where I wanted to stop. Wherein if I had gone argument by argument, it happened with me a lot of times that I had a lot of less time left for the last argument, or I was not able to write proper conclusion because I had no time left. So it's up to you to decide what you want to do in this here. The next advice that I have for you is to build a strategy for you to type your accents, whether you want to do it at the end of the letter writing after having written your letter. You want to change every non-accented word to accented word that demands an accent, or you want to do it alongside as you write. I prefer, or I recommend that you write it alongside as you go. It'll give you a good idea of the time that is left and the actual time that is left. And the second thing that you need to decide when typing accents is to decide the way by which you will be typing your accents, whether it is using the on-screen keyboard that you have within the exam, or use the alt codes, which may or may not work depending on the center that you're giving your exam. I would recommend that you practice using the on-screen keyboard, which I'll link down a website called as bonpatron.com. And on Bonpatron, the UI is quite similar, not exactly similar, but very similar to the real exam screen. And you can use those to practice your mocks and to write your letters. The next advice that I have for you is to reread each paragraph after you're done with it in order for you to be sure that what you've written makes sense. If you write a sentence, reread the sentence, and after you're done writing a paragraph, reread that paragraph so that everything is coherent and is connected well. This is sort of a mini spelling check before you give your whole letter one read at the end of the letter writing. Okay. When it comes to timings, I advise that you practice by 25 plus 10 minutes for this section. That is total of 35 minutes for this section and not more than 20 minutes for the other section. And I advise that you practice only with 55 minutes. Do not take 1 hour as your time for this section because that'll help you improve your writing speed to a great extent. So the extra 5 minutes that you have within the real exam you'll not come to know where they go, because in the real exam there are a lot of other things that are happening. You're new to the keyboard, you're new to the place, you're new to the environment that you're writing in. So a lot of time also goes into figuring out stuff there. So I would advise that you only practice with 55 minutes in hand. The next advice that I have for you is regarding spellings. I would highly recommend that you use and rinse and repeat your spellings that you have mastered within your practice sessions. For example, the sentence structures that you got correct within your practice sessions, I would advise that you only use those within the real exam, because it's highly likely that you will get them correct and not make any mistakes, which you would if you use any new sentence structure that you just came across by talking to someone within the exam center, or you just read a sentence and you want to use that flashy looking sentence structure in the exam. I would highly encourage you to not do that. Only use the sentence structures and spellings which you're really sure of. As for the spelling mistakes, try to not repeat them and use a template that I'll share with you in order to improve your spelling mistake. Basically, what I recommend is for each mistake that you make, write that mistake 6 to 7 times on a sheet of paper, either using a pen or on a virtual environment within a document, for you to be able to write that spelling correctly the next time you encounter that word. And there are a lot of words that occur very frequently within these letters. There are adverbs, there are adjectives that occur very frequently, and hence it's very important that we know the spellings of these in order for you to save time and not thinking about these correct spellings that you need to write. Okay. The last advice is a very simple thing that you can easily master. It's the punctuation. It's a very simple thing that you can get out of your way. Punctuation rules are fixed. So if you give them a good read once or twice, you will be good to go for the entire French preparation journey. Okay. Now let's discuss the template of the letter that I used to use within my mock tests and that I used within my real exam as well. So this is the template where I had the subject, the formal of politesse to the editor-in-chief of the newspaper. I used to skip writing the addresses that we have generally on top of these letters, because that's generally said that it's not evaluated. Okay, as I said earlier, what's evaluated, what's the beef of this letter is basically the arguments and the conclusion. Everything else that can be learned by heart is not really evaluated to a very good extent, or does not carry a lot of weightage, because the examiners know that you can learn this by heart, and hence everybody can write a flashy introduction, a flashy structure. But it's the arguments depending on the topic that you need to write on within the time frame within the exam that will decide your score. Okay. So within these 3 arguments, I used to first write these argument statements that I told you within the planning phase. Then I used to develop these with the help of 1 or 2 sentences, depending on the amount of information that I wanted to give. Then I used to optionally follow this with an example, given the amount of time that I had left. And at the end, I used to conclude my letter by giving the summary of the arguments that I had given, and then I used to give a general closing advice as to what should be done in order to achieve or do better on whatever the subject is. And then I used to optionally add this red line, which basically states that I would be interested in seeing a survey carried out on other whichever people or set of people is being talked about here in the topic, in order to know their opinion as well. uh, I used to skip this line if I was short of time a lot of times, and it's really just an optional thing that you can do and add within your letter. And then at last, again, we have a formal politesse, which means I'm addressing the chief editor of the newspaper, and then I'm signing this letter at the end. Another thing that I have for you is the mistakes template, which I'll show you, which you can use in order to practice not making the same mistakes again and again. So this is the template, which you can use within the Google Sheet format that I have for you here. Basically, for example, let's say within your mock exam, you make récemment, the mistake of writing récemment, which means recently, incorrectly. Okay, you write this word incorrectly. What I recommend you do is basically write this spelling 7 times. One is basically knowing what to write, and then it's 6 times the repetition of the same thing. You can do this either virtually, as I said, or do this by printing these copies into by a printer and or writing this by hand. Both of these things are helpful. Whichever is your preferred way, I'd advise that you do this and follow this regularly after your mocks. Write all your mistakes 7 to 8 times, and I assure you that within your next attempt of your mock session, you are less likely to make those same mistakes again. Okay, if you want to receive this in PDF format or the document link to this sheet, I can share it with you if you connect with me on Telegram. Just send me a message on Telegram that you want the lesson PDF or the template for this writing section, and I'll be happy to share it with you. Next, what I have for you is advice from the experts from CCI Paris, which has been stated in the video. I've referred the exact advice verbatim here, and you can pause the video and refer to this. This is the first page, and here is the second page. You can give this a pause if you want to read this. And here I have a list of subjects that you can use in order to practice for these letters. There are about 40 topics. So this is the first page. You can pause here. And this is the second page. Again, I have the same format for the section A subjects as well. You can pause here if you want to get these subjects, or you can take a screenshot as well. I can also share these subjects with you within the lesson PDF on Telegram. That brings us to the end of this video. I hope you liked it, and if you did, please don't forget to give it a like, subscribe to my channel for more such content, and I'll see you next time. Bye.